Welcome to r/payback. Last Saturday night, my husband and I went to a friend's birthday party. It was one of those trendy rooftop events, fairy lights strung along the railings, music playing just loud enough to dance but soft enough to talk, and drinks flowing like it was everyone's first weekend off in months. The view of the city skyline was breathtaking, the air crisp and cool. On the surface, everything looked perfect. We were laughing, mingling, pretending to be carefree, but underneath the buzz of the night, I felt something off. A tension between us that hadn't fully gone away in weeks. He'd been acting strange lately. Not distant exactly, but unpredictable. Like he was always one step ahead of where the conversation was going, waiting to twist it into a joke that never quite landed. Still, I told myself not to make a big deal out of it. It was just a night out. Or so I thought. We've been married for 4 years, and for a while, things were great. We traveled, had late-night talks, and laughed until our stomachs hurt. But over the past year, something shifted. Fights became more frequent. He'd brush off my concerns as too sensitive or overthinking. He had a way of joking about serious things, his job, our finances, even our arguments, like they were all just scenes in a sitcom. But it was his humor that started to worry me. It went from light sarcasm to something darker. He liked to play pranks, small ones at first, like hiding my phone or faking an injury, but they started escalating. Once, he popped a balloon behind my head while I was pouring coffee. I spilled it all over myself and nearly dropped the pot. He laughed for 10 minutes. I didn't. I told him I didn't like being scared or startled like that. He shrugged and said, "It's just who I am. Don't take everything so seriously." I wanted to believe he meant no harm, that he just didn't realize where the line was. But that night on the roof, that's when I found out just how far past the line he was willing to go. We arrived just after 8 p.m. The rooftop was already glowing with golden lights and scattered groups of friends sipping cocktails, the city stretching out behind them like a postcard. It was the kind of place people posted about. Sleek bar setup, cozy lounge corners, and a dance floor that had just enough bounce to it to make everyone feel cool. I smiled and waved to our host, hugging a few people I hadn't seen in months. My husband grabbed us drinks, rum and Coke for him, something sweet and fizzy for me, and we found a spot near the edge where we could lean against the ledge and talk. That ledge. It was made of thick concrete, waist-high, but with nothing beyond it except air. Below us? 8 stories straight down to the street. He leaned over casually and made a joke about how he could see our car from up there. Then he said, "I wonder what it feels like to fall from this height," with that half-smile that never quite reached his eyes. I laughed nervously and changed the subject, but in the back of my mind, something clicked. Not fear exactly, not yet, but that gut feeling that whispers, "This isn't funny anymore." After a while, my husband started making more comments about the height. At first, they sounded like jokes. "Hey, if I fell from here, would I survive?" Or, "Bet you couldn't jump off and land safely." People nearby chuckled nervously, but the laughter felt forced. I noticed some guests glancing at each other, clearly uncomfortable. Even our host frowned when my husband joked about how easy it would be to say goodbye from the ledge. I tried to ignore it, hoping he'd stop. I didn't want to ruin the night, and I reminded myself he often made edgy jokes. But every time he made one of those comments, a knot grew tighter in my stomach. It felt different this time. Darker, less playful. The more he talked about the ledge and falling, the more people started shifting away or changing the subject. Even I was beginning to feel uneasy. I took a deep breath and nudged him, whispering, "Hey, maybe stop with those jokes. It's making everyone uncomfortable." He just smirked and said, "Relax. It's all in good fun." But his eyes looked sharp, almost daring, like he was testing me to see how far I'd let him go. Then suddenly, without warning, he grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the edge. I laughed nervously, thinking he was just being silly, the kind of goofy thing he sometimes did to surprise me. "Hey, what are you doing?" I asked, trying to pull back but also smiling because I thought this was another prank. He didn't answer. Instead, he wrapped his arms around me and lifted me up. I gasped as I felt my feet leave the ground, and for a split second I was laughing, trying to convince myself it was all a joke. But then he started walking closer and closer to the edge of the rooftop. My smile faltered. "Wait, stop," I said, panic creeping into my voice. "This isn't funny anymore. Put me down." He just chuckled and said, "Say goodbye." The concrete edge was right in front of us. The drop was sheer, more than 8 stories down. I felt the cold air rush past me and the sound of distant traffic far below. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. I tried to wiggle free, but he held me tight. My breath caught in my throat, and I realized this wasn't a joke anymore. This was dangerous, reckless, and terrifying. I was dangling over the edge of the rooftop, the city lights blurry beneath me. Time slowed, my mind racing with every terrifying possibility. What if his grip slipped? What if I fell? My hands clung to his wrists, trembling uncontrollably. My legs kicked weakly in the air, but there was nothing to grab onto except him. I screamed, a sharp, raw sound that shocked even me. He laughed, this horrible, breathy laugh that chilled me to the bone. "Relax," he said, still holding me over the ledge. "It's just a prank." But in that moment, all I could think was how wrong he was. This wasn't a prank. This was a nightmare. My vision blurred with tears, my chest tightened with fear and betrayal. I begged him to stop, my voice breaking. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he pulled me back onto solid ground. My legs buckled, and I collapsed, shaking so hard I could barely stand. He was still laughing, as if nothing had happened. I was frozen, trying to process the horror of what just occurred. Guests were staring, some horrified, others unsure if this was part of the act or something worse. I wanted to scream at him, to demand he explain why he did that. But all I could do was breathe, shaking, and feel a deep, raw sadness wash over me. He finally set me down on the rooftop floor, still laughing like it was the funniest thing in the world. But I wasn't laughing. I was frozen, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. My legs felt weak, and my hands were trembling uncontrollably. The world around me seemed to slow. Guests stared in stunned silence, unsure how to react. I didn't say a word. I just turned and ran, my breath coming in sharp gasps. I could hear his laughter fading behind me, but he didn't chase after me right away. The cold night air hit my face as I stumbled toward the stairs, desperate to get away from that terrifying moment. I could still feel the chill of the drop beneath me, and the echo of his cruel laughter burned in my ears. My mind was racing, trying to understand how something that started as a casual night out had turned into the worst moment of my life. I didn't know if I wanted to cry or scream. All I knew was I had to get away. Away from him, away from the rooftop, away from the nightmare. As soon as I reached the safety of the street below, I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. My voice was tight, but controlled as I explained what had just happened. I told them my husband had dangled me over the edge of a rooftop. It was reckless, dangerous, and I feared for my life. The dispatcher's voice was calm but serious. She asked me questions to make sure I was safe and to get my location. I gave them the address of the building and told them I was now off the rooftop, on the ground. Minutes felt like hours as I waited for the police to arrive. My heart still raced, and every shadow seemed to flicker with memories of that moment. When the officers showed up, I told them everything. How it started as a joke, how I thought he was going to drop me, and how terrified I was. They listened carefully, taking notes and asking if I wanted to press charges or get a restraining order. I wasn't sure what to say. Part of me was still numb, but I knew I needed help. Later that night, when I was still shaking at home, he called. His tone was furious and defensive. He told me I was overreacting and that I had ruined the night with my panic. "It was just a joke," he said sharply. "You can't take a joke. You scared everyone with your reaction." I told him how terrified I had been, how no one else thought it was funny, and how dangerous it was to dangle me like that. But he didn't listen. He blamed me for being too sensitive and accused me of ruining what he had been looking forward to for weeks. His words cut deeper than the prank ever could. I realized that, for him, my fear was just part of the joke. Something to laugh at, not something to take seriously. That night, I understood that our relationship had crossed a line I never thought possible, and I had to decide what to do next. When I got home, I was alone with my thoughts, and they were spinning fast. The fear from the rooftop didn't leave me. I kept replaying his hands gripping me, the edge so close beneath my feet, and his laughter ringing in my ears. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't breathe right, and tears came without warning. I tried to push the memory away, but it kept coming back, over and over. What if his grip had slipped? What if I had fallen? I felt scared in a way I never had before, a deep kind of fear that made my whole body shake. I couldn't stop thinking about how close I had been to real danger, and how he thought it was funny. Sleep didn't come easily. Every time I closed my eyes, I was back on that rooftop, hanging on for my life. As the night wore on, I started asking myself questions I'd been avoiding. Was this the first real warning sign? The first time he pushed too far? His weird jokes? The way he crossed boundaries? Was it all a sign that something was seriously wrong? I wondered if I could really trust him anymore. How safe did I feel in my own marriage? Was this what love looked like? A twisted joke at my expense, where my fear was just entertainment? I thought about all the little moments I brushed off, the times I told myself to ignore the weird feelings in my gut. Now, it felt like I'd been blind to the truth. Could I stay with someone who made me feel unsafe? Or was it time to face reality and make a change? I'm writing here because I don't know what to think. Am I the butthole for calling the cops on my husband over what he says was just a prank? I want to believe he didn't mean to hurt me, but how do you explain something like that? Is it fair that I'm terrified and feeling betrayed while he thinks I'm just overreacting? I'm scared and confused. I want to be a good wife, but I also want to be safe. I hope someone can help me see what I'm missing or tell me if I'm right to feel this way. Reddit, am I the butthole for what I did? That wraps up today's episode of r/payback. If you enjoyed the ride, don't forget to subscribe for more epic stories.